You preemptively jumped out the window and almost like fucking announced something which I later announced that my podcast is transitioning from Spotify. I was in an you announced it during the week that we were actually having conversations with them about two things, whether we're going to continue on for either like a year more, or we were going to transition out and what that would look like.
Right.
And, you know, my agent and my lawyer has been fighting for, like, you know, we're getting actually everything back, so all the assets. So, you know, for anyone who thought I never owned the podcast, everything's come back to me.
But they got rid of almost everybody, right?
Say again?
They got rid of like the vast majority of the people that were doing exclusive podcasts, right?
Yes, they've been cleaning the house, honestly. So it's like, if you ask me, I think this year about 85% of their original content is going to be just either weeded out. And if you ask me about probably next year, we might only see like Rogan over there still in, just because Rogan is that guy, and you just have to acknowledge it. You know what I mean?
But this reminds me a lot of the whole like original streaming wars, where you remember like Apple Music was paying for like what Chance the Rapper, or who else had exclusives? I can't even fucking remember. But Tidal had a few of them. It's like it's almost the same thing where you see the value of a podcast host being temporarily artificially inflated by all these big ass corporations trying to get involved in a hot marketplace like podcasting. And that was always kind of weird for me to witness, because I'm over here homegrown just doing shit that is like self-owned. And yeah, we have sponsors and shit like that, but it's like I'm building everything without any kind of corporate partners. And to see, you know, all and like I'm sure you see it too, where you have all these podcasts that, you know, the Spotify playlist podcasts and shit that are kind of popping up out of the middle of nowhere, and the economics on these podcasts that are being built by some of these streaming platforms and shit just makes no fucking sense. They're paying people way too much money. These podcasts are not getting fucking views, and you know, you realize that that's artificially inflated.
Every industry though. That's every industry. Yeah, so it's like this. And this is why, like, even for example now, and I'll be like pretty transparent too, right? Like I have a contract now to, like, first of all, everything that's happened in the podcast market, I think is ending now, right? So like, for example, if you want to know when that era started, Joe Budden was the start. I think I'm the end, right? So we're kind of both, we're one half of that era. Obviously, you're gonna have the people like Joe Rogan, they might transcend, but that's Joe Rogan. But everybody else, you know, it was probably beneficial for you. Like, for example, for me, like, and I'll be very honest and upfront, I never did a podcast, right? I'm leaving Everyday Struggle, right? They're offering millions. Hey, we know because you have the brand, you have the facial recognition, you have the fucking, I don't even know if I'm a household name, but whatever metrics they were looking at, hey, and I believe they tried to get Charlemagne before, so they had offered Charlemagne a bag. Like, he turned it down. He said with iHeart. So they couldn't get Joe, they couldn't get Charlemagne, they offered me. Cool. We worked some shit out. It ended up turning into, there was like a whole bit in where I could probably say now, Apple and Spotify were going back and forth at it. At first, they didn't want to give me ownership, and I was like, yo, salute to my man Larry Jackson over Apple. It was like, yo, you know, Apple actually offered us like $1 million more like per year. And we're just like, yo, we're about to go there. Spotify comes back with pretty much all the terms we want. We agree. I'm like, yo,
Apple doesn't even have exclusive podcasts, do they?
That's the funny part about it. At the time, Larry Jackson was in the system of Apple. This is before Jimmy Iovine is officially out of there. He was about to get his own. Remember, Larry Jackson's the reason why exclusive rappers were doing exclusive deals. Period. He brought exclusives. That's why Lucian Grange, the guy who runs, I don't know if you know music business, right? Lucian Grange, the guy who runs the whole Universal, right. When he seen what Larry Jackson did with Drake, where Drake's album was out for a week on like Apple, he said, fuck this. We're not doing this anymore. But the guy who single-handedly did it, which by the way, he's a genius. So salute to Larry Jackson. He's also the guy who brought, at least when Versus was on Apple, he did the Gucci Man and Jeezy thing where Gucci was like, he's getting $1 million. So this guy's like a power player. At the time, he was having a situation kind of brewing where they're about to just kind of give him autonomy. Like, hey, listen, you could do these shows for Apple Plus, right? So in reality, back then, there was a conversation to be had about me and Joe even reuniting on Apple, but also me getting my podcast on Apple. So it's going to be a huge deal, right? I'm kind of waiting for it. Me and Joe were kind of communicating a little bit. By the way, this is the year I got the podcast. All of a sudden, Spotify is in the running. Like, they're fucking with me. And by the way, to keep it real, I wanted to be a Spotify because my agents, they were talking to me like they wanted me to be an Apple, and no disrespect. Hopefully I'm not like just spewing too much business because I would love to work with either or later. But eventually it came down to, if I signed to Apple, like this was the major thing for me. If I signed to Apple, I couldn't start till like the year after. So I would have to sit on the shelf. And for me, I cared about the optics. I'm like, I'm leaving Everyday Struggle. Yes, I'm going to go back to doing what I'm normally doing. But if people just see Act looking like he's stagnated, that's not good. If I hit the Spotify joint right now, we lit, right? We go to Spotify and we had a beautiful 2 years over there. And now it's like they're just in the business model of being done with those deals. What's happening there is happening now in streaming. So now I have a Rumble deal. And shit, even though I'm on Twitch and YouTube, I can say this too. I'm very upfront. By the way, for everybody who's watching, the reason why I'm upfront, because I do consider myself, just like Adam is, just like Joe is, just like Charlamagne is, we're leaders in the space. And I try to be upfront with my business, hoping that it could let you know where the market is going, because some of y'all dream and like work towards like either these bigger bags or want to know what's the best way to kind of make a career out of this. And it moves quickly. Like, for example, right now, all these companies, they're offering, at least for now, for streaming. So I picked up a streaming deal. Kai Cenat did, Aiden did, all these people did. Now, let's be very clear. In 2 years, that's done. I do not think, I think I'm going to get paid this year, next year. And after that, they're going to be like, we built our audience. We'll give you a scaled down version or something of the sort. That's just the reality of it, right? And for me, I just try to, I think me and you, we have different business models in the sense your shit is just all homegrown, get it out the mud, because I don't know if these companies don't holler at you, or maybe they do, but they don't offer whatever you need. But for me, it's like, I always get to do both, right? Like, for example, I'm not signing a contract that I can't sell Twitch. I'm not signing, I don't care what contract. I'm not going to sign a contract, like, let's say it's going to be for a show if I can't do my podcast and Twitch. So for me, it's just a supplemental thing. So for me, it's like, hey, if you're bringing millions of dollars to the table, right? Like this contract at Rumble, it's to Rumble, my man Chris over there. I'm still allowed to stream on these other platforms partially, right? Like Kick, I could have went to Kick, but they're going to be like, you got to leave Twitch. You can't be on YouTube. Makes sense to be over here. You know what I mean? So it's really all business, but I do know that this is going to end, right? 2 years, like they're not going to keep paying this indefinitely. And that's kind of where we are, just like business-wise. I think I try to educate the audience with it, but it's hard for sometimes people to understand if they're not in these rooms or in these conversations yet.
Well, you know what it is? It's like what happened in golf, where about like the PGA and LIV. Yeah. You ever read about that shit? It's like LIV comes in and they, are owned by Saudi Arabia. They have infinite money, and they say, hey, golfers, we're going to guarantee you a shitload of money, because normally these golfers, they can make a shitload of money, but it's all based on them winning tournaments. And it's like, there's hundreds of dudes in each tournament. So it might be like $10 million if you win a tournament, but you're like, have like a 1 in 500 chance of winning. So then LIV comes in and they say, hey, we have infinite money, which basically Stake, aka Kick, has infinite money. They say, okay, we're going to pay everybody a shitload of money, to the point where even people who have a principled stance against working with a company that's basically, operating out of Saudi funds has to basically go do it. And then at some point, the PGA just relents and says, okay, we're so scared of how deep your pockets are that we're going to just merge with you, and that we're just going to be one league. And it's pretty fucking crazy, because you could imagine that kind of happening within like any other sport. Like, what the fuck is to stop Saudi Arabia from coming to the NBA and saying the same fucking thing? I don't know that the NBA players are unhappy enough with their deals or whatever that they would want to do such a thing, but you could imagine it. And yeah, I didn't even think about like how temporary this whole like getting paid to stream wave is, but that's definitely probably true. I haven't actually heard from any of the companies in terms of making us offers or whatever, but
every number you hear from, I don't want to mention any particular person's contract, the max is 2 years, max.
Right.
And most people are usually on a 1, maybe 2. Because again, they're just trying to buy market share. Like, it's the same with exclusive podcasts. Spotify wanted to be that was their only goal. We want to be the number one place where podcast is consumed. They did that over the time that they spent a lot of money. Now that they're number one, Now they're like, okay, we're going to chill back and now focus on certain different things. Also, we stopped spending so much money. Our stock price or our quarterly reports look a little bit better because we're not losing or hemorrhaging money. Now we're making more and we got market share. So shit's looking, I mean, it's all business. I mean, you understand business. So it works.